What were actually some of the quirkiest things that happened to you guys while in the booth?
Nothing grandiose has happened to me while on a job, but often to more and more video games these days are military and first-person shooters. So a portion of a lot of the auditions will be acting, laid back, quiet. Come on, we gotta go over that ridge. But then there's also, come on, let's go! Or villains or demons are going, I'll destroy you all! And you have to go huge. And I get the hiccups really easy when I go that. So it's happened like 5 or 6 times where there'll be like a mad scientist or something, and they'll have a huge line where it says A-L-L-L-L-L-L, and I'll go, and I'll have yelled a bunch of times already, and then I'll go, I'll destroy you all! and sometimes I once just gave up on it. I just did a lower key version of what I thought it should be because I couldn't do it.
Because you were afraid of getting a hiccup.
I couldn't do it.
Couldn't get it out. I wish we had like crazy stories, but there are things here and there. I was working on a show called Girls Bravo, which is much cooler than you think it is. I know it's fan service and I know it's about movies, but we took a lot of that's important. And bananas. But we took a certain amount of care with that show just because we all loved it, we thought it was funny. But there's this one scene where Yuri is he's being chased by an entire dimension full of women who are bound on having him, and he's running and he twists his ankle and he falls down. He's like, I can't go on. And right after that we broke for a 5-minute break. And there was I had to eat breakfast, and so I said, hey, Patrick, I'm going to run next door to the liquor store. Seriously, there was only a liquor store near there. I was getting a power bar. I wasn't getting vodka to finish the session. No, seriously, it was right next door. It was the only thing.
There's a lot of caloric value to barley and hops.
So I ran next door and totally twisted my ankle. Like it was 5 feet. It was 5 feet away. Like only an idiot runs, 5 feet and twists his ankle.
So you were in character the whole time.
I came limping back. My whole ankle had swelled up, and I said, Patrick, you need to get me some ice. He goes, what happened? I said, oh, was that a twist? He goes, method actors.
Yes.
The night, you're in a booth by yourself, and you're going to be there for an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever. So you relax into it. Nobody's going to come and bother you. And I was working on a show once, and I got in there, and I had Mexican food or Indian food or something like that the night before. And I'm like, well, there's nobody. It's just me. What the hell, right? And I just relaxed into it. I just let it go, and I'm like, okay, whatever. We hadn't even started recording, or we had done some. We were waiting, and I'm like, well, they're not even going to hear it, where it's silent. I was like, it's silent. And then as soon as I had done it, here's what comes over the mic from the engineer. Hey, the guy who runs the studio, his daughter is here. We told her she could do a couple lines. She's only got a few minutes. We're going to have her come in and do them right now. And I was like, no. Before then it opens the door. And this young girl comes in, and the engineer, or the director, and they walk in, and I'm like, maybe they won't notice. And she walks in and she goes, and the director comes in and he goes, Yuri. And he shooed her out, and they aired the room out for a second. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know anybody else was coming in.
It was my space for 4 hours. Nobody supposed to come in.
You could have warned me.
I do that no daughter of the studio, but I won't even blame it on some bullshit excuse if I had Mexican. I just fart a lot. I fart a lot. And I'll wait until we come back from a break and they seal me in, and I'll be like, I'm by myself. And then always, like every 8th time, they'll be like, oh, we gotta come in and adjust the mic, like directly afterwards. You just act like it didn't happen, but both of you know it did.
The mic wasn't on, right?
The mic picks up everything.
Yeah.
That's something you got to get used to when you're working in there. Is those mics are really sensitive because they're supposed to be, and they cost a lot of money so that they are sensitive. But it hears everything you do, anything and everything you do.
Especially stomach gurgles. You'll deliver a quiet line like, "It's you and me to the end."
Oh wow.
So no, nothing ever weird or funny happens.
So you guys can't fart in the studio. Beautiful. Might end up in your favorite anime. So if you hear a fart noise in your favorite anime, it may not be a studio sound. It may be organic.
That's your new anime drinking game. You just try to guess which of our lines we were letting it rip on.
Best panel ever.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, once we were doing, it was sort of for Halo 2, but not for Halo 2. It was for a sort of this underground advertising campaign for Halo 2, which was a series of almost radio shows we did called I Love Bees. And they actually recorded oftentimes, I say oftentimes a lot. Now you're going to notice it.
Oftentimes.
I say oftentimes all the time. They actually had 3 of the actors in the booth at the same time, which is complicated because while one of them's talking, the other 2 have to be quiet. And when you're having conversations, you get mic bleed from one person to the next mic and all that. But we were supposed to have this sort of drop-down, drag-out fight at one point, and we were trying to figure out exactly how we were going to make it sound right. And the director, who's not a VO director really, he goes, "You guys can mix it up a little bit. Just sort of wrestle around in there, just fight." And I'm like, no, because you can hear the sounds of the. He's like, "Yeah, I want to hear the sounds."
Hey dummy, this is voiceover.
Yeah, exactly. And so we sort of wrestled around a little bit and knocked over like a music stand and ran into a wall, and of course they couldn't use it, But we got to fight, which is fun. Yeah.
So an example would just be, "Fuck you."
right.
Oh, it's so raw, it's so real, I love it. Ship it.
Put the signature part at the end.
Recently, we were doing a web series for Machinima that was a Dragon Age thing, but it was using the game engine to create this animated series, and the guy they had to direct was an on-camera director. He had never directed voiceover. And he said, "Okay, I didn't really feel it when you were doing the running sounds. Really, I want you to pick up your feet when you run." And I look at the engineer, because then you're going to get this, this, sound, which then of course you can't use it because it's covered in thumping noises. And I look at the engineer, and he just sort of shook his head, and I did it, and I go, "Well, why don't I do one more without?" And then I saw the engineer nod his head up and down. And the guy actually at one point he said, I'm not feeling it. Here, come on, let me get. He walked around behind me. He was directing from inside the booth, which on-camera actors are wont to do. And he got around behind me and he said, "Yeah, come on, you're running." And then he grabbed me and started shaking me. I was like, "Whoa! Don't touch me! You gotta warn me before you touch me. Get out of my booth!" It's weird. I'm glad we don't have any stories to tell about that.
Great suggestion. Beautiful.
That's good. I knew we'd be able to bring that around and use it.
Oh wow. Well. Oh, okay. Well, bringing it all the way back. What was it like with you guys' very first voice acting session? Taking it back.
My first voice acting session was a Right Stuff show called Boogie Pop Phantom. Wow. Hell yeah. All right, so the way I got into this really was I was doing a 4-man version of Romeo and Juliet in Cincinnati. I was playing Juliet, and my best role ever, and my nurse was Crispin Freeman, who you all know. And he, at that point, had been doing
I have dreams where my nurse is Crispin Freeman.
Those frosted tips. But he'd only been doing it for like a year and a half, so like now he's all meta about it, and it's his whole whole quest in life. But then he was geeky about it. He'd show up every day to rehearsal with an anime t-shirt on, and by about every day. And like the 10th day he came in, and I finally said, hey, isn't that the little rock dude from Mononoke? And he just vomited all this information about anime on me, and we started watching stuff. And then when I got back to New York, he called me up and said, hey, one of the companies I work with is having an audition, do you want to come? So I leapt out my window, did a crotch roll, and then ran to the studio and auditioned. But as a director, I know now that like you don't really take risks on new actors, even if you think they're good, because the budgets are small, you don't have a lot of time. It's better to hire this guy because you know he's fast and good than Joe Schmo, because you could come in and you could be like pulling teeth trying to get what you need. But for some reason they gave me not a lead in the show, but each of those episodes in the show had like one mystery or one thing that happened into it, like an X-Files, the lightning guy, or tentacle great dude. And I was like a stalker kid. They hired me to play this young kid who was obsessed with a girl and was stalking her. And
the story of his marriage.
I'm not the stalker type. But I was working my first session ever on Boogie Pop Phantom, and I thought it was going okay. It was certainly within, it was my type. Now I play big dudes, but that seemed to me to be my type. And we'd been going for about 2 hours, and the guy who was directing, I was in the middle of a take, and sometimes in anime, they'll have lines, they'll be short, or one line or something. But occasionally, it'll be this huge friggin' a paragraph that just goes and goes, and the flap just keeps going, and the character's not, the animation's not breathing, because they're in a cartoon, they don't need to breathe, so they can just go like this forever. And so, you gotta take in a huge belly of air and just kind of go, and sometimes you'll only make it halfway, and you'll sort of splice in the second half of it. And I looked at it and was nervous, but I just went, stalking you, I'm really cute guy, stalking. And when we finished, and like the glass is here, there's typically glass between you and your director, and I'm looking at the TV screen, and they're in my peripheral, stalking. I made it. And then out of nowhere, a hand just goes, boom! Glass. And I flew back on the stool that I was on. I had no idea what was going on, and his hand was on the window, and there was the letters FB on a post-it note as he slapped it to the wall. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know voiceover from my butthole. And I thought I was being fired or replaced, or I didn't know what was going on. And so it was FB, and I just stared, and he went, "Fucking brilliant!" And I've been in love with the industry ever since.
It's fun, that whole glass between the director and then the engineering room and you in the booth can be really, really intimidating because you do your thing and there's just silence. And you can see them moving around in there, and as actors we get in our head a lot. We're like, oh god, I'm getting fired. It's terrible. You get really, you want to lean in and go, you want to say, I can do it again, I can do whatever you want, I'll do, just tell me what to do.
Really quick, let's just show them how that looks. I'm the director, you're the actor, you just deliver a line, any line.
Okay. Where I will find the amulet of Zebulon!
Great, Yuri, hold on 1 second. Alright. We really like that one. We really like that one. I'm going to save it. Do it again.
Do you want me to change it up at all?
No, just go again.
It's like that, and all you can think of, and it's a sad reflection on who we are as actors. But we automatically go to the worst possible place. I'm getting fired. They hate me. I have no talent. I should, kill myself in here, and at least they'll feel bad. Whatever thoughts that go into your head. And that happened to me. I remember once in where and you can tell sometimes when you're having trouble giving them what they want. You've done it several times, and they try to give you different direction, but you can tell that you're not giving them what they sort of have heard in their head. And I remember doing that. It was on a video game once, and it was one line over and over, and I clearly didn't get it. And they're like, yeah, hold on a second. And then I I try not to look through the glass because it always psychs me out. So but I was looking over, and it looked like they were arguing in there over something. And then I saw one guy, hold up his hand, get on the phone. And I'm like, oh, they're calling the guy who I beat out for the role. They're trying to see if he's available. I know they are, and this is terrible. This is terrible. I'm fired. I'm fired. I'll never work again. They'll tell everybody in the world that, not to hire me. And I was sweating, and the longer it went on, the more, it was terrible. And finally, the director, he sort of looks over, and he must have seen me, like this, up at the glass. And he goes, and he leans over and he goes, oh, hey, sorry, Yuri, sorry about all that. We're trying to figure out what we want for lunch. We just had Thai. We've had Thai food for like 3 days in a row now, and he wants to hang out. And are they, do you want some food? Do you want us to order you lunch? And I was just like, no, it's okay. Whatever you want. I created. We have great imaginations. We established that. I created that. I just wish I could create something better than I'm getting fired.
Yuri, I'm going to give you a piece of career advice, having been in that booth and been in a situation.
Yes.
I tend to work differently, which is why I've probably been fired twice or two times. But it's actually pretty funny because for me, they'll be looking in the booth and they'll have their conversation going on, and I'll be looking at them and I watch them. And me being the kid that I am, I dub them. So they could be having any kind of conversation about process, and based on the intensity that they're having it, tells me what the situation is. Sam, you've been sleeping with my wife. Have not. I've been sleeping with your dog. It just gets worse from there.
It's much more
Oh man,
fun than you do it.
once your imagination goes down that dark path, it just never comes back. So, of course, after they come back, so could you read that line again? Wait a minute, please.
Yeah.
Just wait. I got you.
I'm laughing. Excuse me, I'm laughing.
I just close my eyes and fart and fart. Fart and fart and fart. Washes it all away.
I hope you guys realize that this entire time under the table, I've been like folding origami from Nurse, just dealing with his gas. So now we're going to actually turn it to the lovely audience to ask questions. I know you guys have a lot of fart questions, especially these two. She was ready. So yes, what would you guys like to ask? We'll go with you. You've been consistent.
I'm sorry, that's not a fart question. Can we get a fart question?
Persona 4, a lot of people have asked us if we're reprising our roles for the anime. I haven't been contacted. I don't know any of the actors who have been contacted. I don't know if that means that they just haven't let us know yet, or if it means they're not gonna dub it. They might just sub it, like they did with Dot Hack. What are you gonna do? Tails of the Abyss. Yeah, Tails. I mean, they haven't contacted.
We're often the last to know what's going on in the show.
How about this one? Oh, critical hit to the neck! I love it. I think they were making up for me playing the player character in, or the main character in Persona 3 who doesn't say anything. And then so they're like, P4, why don't we give him the character who can't shut the fuck up? That'll make it all better.
Yes.
Yeah, I would do another season 2. I'll sign that petition. I hear there's a petition going around for season 2. I'd sign that petition.
I refuse to do another season of Good I don't refuse.
He hates Only if there's a character that constantly farts.
Y'all don't understand. I'm going to have to deal with this all weekend. All weekend. Because now that's no longer his mouth.